Joining me today is Representative Neal Kurk. He's a New Hampshire representative. Neal, let's continue our conversation. So we talked about the right to work, and that is sort of the right off the gun. This is what the governor did. The Senate passed this. They've got a couple of issues that I think were bread and butter Republican issues. You're going to transition into a number of other issues. I guess my next one is the budget. I mean, we're starting the budget process this year, and I know it's early. The governor hasn't submitted his budget yet. The Senate and the House, the House hasn't looked at it. The Senate obviously hasn't looked at it. Can you give me a preview of what you think we ought to look for in this upcoming budget?
Yes. This is an unusual budget for many years because I believe that the revenues that we expect to come in will come in relatively strong. That is to say, higher than in past years. And that is both an opportunity and a danger. It's an opportunity because we can use this revenue to fund various things that perhaps we would have wanted to fund, perhaps more money towards education funding or something like that, but we haven't had the money in the past. The problem, the danger is that it's not clear how long this revenue stream will stay up at its high level. And we don't want to be like other states, which in good times put in place new or expanded ongoing programs, and then in a few years when revenues tanked, they found that they couldn't sustain these programs and they either had to raise taxes or cut the programs. I think we need to be very careful about expanding because we're at the height of an economic boom period, and within a few years I'm sure we'll see some sort of slowdown. And so if we're going to have additional revenue, I think we probably ought to look more towards putting that into one-time kinds of improvements. We have some problems with our transportation network, roads, red-listed bridges as they've been called. Those are the kinds of things we should look at. We've got some problems with our schools in terms of their physical structures. It's not that the school population is increasing, and for most communities we need new schools to accommodate a growing student base. It's that many of our schools are older and need substantial rehabilitation or replacement because they've outlived their usefulness.
And the state has cut the capital funding. The state used to fund,
we had
40 cents on the dollar for what the...
We would fund 30% generally of certain school building projects, but we only allocated $50 million for this. We had a problem when Governor Lynch was governor in that he put into place a program that required us to borrow money to make these payments, which of course was borrowing for what amounts to an operating expense and very bad budgeting from my point of view. We still have to pay off. It was about $150 million that was borrowed. We have to pay that off. Plus, we already have a very large outstanding balance of payments that we owe districts, and we want to make sure that we're still making those, which we are. So for the past, I think, 2 or 3 years, we've had a moratorium on new projects. I hope this year we can end that moratorium and find some money to help communities who are truly in need of significant replacements for their existing buildings.
Hopefully
to do so.
This other item that I'm going to get to is hopefully a one-time thing, but it may not be. Attacking the opioid crisis.
John, that's not one time. That's a 50-year project because in order to deal with this seriously, it's got to be a cultural change. Look what's happened over the past 50 years with respect to cigarettes. In 1964, we had the Surgeon General's report. 75–80% of the adult population in the United States were smokers. Everybody on the movies were smoking. Everybody on television was smoking. It's been 50 years, and we're now down to 15%, from 75% to 15%. It took us 50 years.
Right, so, but the opioid crisis is going in the wrong direction. We have more people addicted to opioids now than we did 10 years ago.
Yes.
We've got more dangerous things. Is that something that you're going to think we're going to, well, we talked about it last year in the last session. Is that something you think we'll see more of this year in the budget?
If we can figure out, if in fact we are doing things that actually provide useful outcomes, not just giving people education, not just providing services, but actually taking people who were addicted and dealing with that so they're no longer addicted, I think we will spend some money on that. But it's got to be something that's lasting. Too often we do things which has a temporary effect, and in effect we're not spending money wisely. We need to make sure that we spend this money in ways that provides the treatment, both short-term and long-term, to deal with this problem. But only if it can be proven that in fact they work.
Okay, we're out of time in this segment. When we return, we're going to continue our conversation focusing on other issues in the budget, so please stay with us.